The day I lost my job, I told myself it was temporary. I had worked for the same healthcare company in Dallas for 6 years. I wasn't just earning a paycheck, I was helping people, building friendships, and contributing to our home. When the company announced layoffs, I sat in the conference room with 20 other employees, holding a folder that suddenly made my future feel uncertain. I drove home rehearsing what I would say to my husband, Ethan. I'll find something else soon. We'll be okay. It's just a season. I expected concern, maybe even a hug. Instead, he looked at the letter in my hand, sighed, and asked the first question. So, how are we going to pay your half? I smiled nervously. I have savings, and I'll start applying tomorrow. He nodded without looking at me. Good. That single word settled heavily in the room. At first, nothing seemed different. I updated my resume, applied for jobs, attended networking events, and spent hours preparing for interviews. I treated my job search like a full-time job. But little things started changing. When we ordered dinner, Ethan would joke, "Maybe we should skip dessert now." When friends invited us out, he'd answer before I could, "We're trying to save money." He wasn't wrong, but he always looked directly at me when he said it. One Saturday, we met his parents for lunch. His father asked how work was going. Before I could answer, Ethan laughed. "She's enjoying an unexpected vacation." Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile. His mother added, "Maybe this is a good chance to focus on keeping the house perfect." I looked at Ethan. He didn't say a word. On the drive home, I quietly asked, "Did that bother you?" "What?" "The joke," he shrugged. "It wasn't that serious. It embarrassed me. You've become really sensitive lately." Sensitive, that word followed me everywhere after that. If I asked him to help with dishes, I was sensitive. If I mentioned feeling discouraged, I was sensitive. If I admitted I felt lonely, I was sensitive. Meanwhile, my days became longer. I cleaned the house, handled grocery shopping, paid the bills that I still could, scheduled appointments, cooked dinner every evening, applied for jobs between everything else. Yet somehow, I felt smaller every week. One afternoon, I overheard Ethan talking on the phone. "I basically pay for everything now." I froze. That wasn't true. I was paying our utilities from my savings, covering groceries, paying my own insurance, buying household supplies, using money I had spent years saving. But he spoke as though I contributed nothing. I didn't interrupt. I simply walked away. That evening, I opened every financial statement we had. For hours, I highlighted every expense, every transfer, every payment. Not because I wanted to prove him wrong. Because I needed to remind myself of the truth. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't lazy. I was unemployed. Those are not the same thing. The following week, I had 3 interviews. None of them worked out. Each rejection hurt more than the last. I stopped telling Ethan about them. He never asked anyway. Instead, he'd come home asking questions like, "Did you get anything productive done today?" At first, I'd explain everything I'd accomplished. Eventually, I stopped explaining. One evening, he came home carrying shopping bags, new golf clubs, a designer jacket, expensive sneakers. I smiled. They looked nice. They were on sale. I nodded. Later that night, he reminded me we needed to reduce grocery spending. I stared at the receipt sitting on the counter. Over $900. Something inside me quietly shifted, not anger. Clarity. The next morning, I opened my laptop. Instead of searching only for jobs, I searched for apartments. Small ones. Simple ones. Places I could afford if necessary. I wasn't planning to leave. I was reminding myself that I had choices. For months, I had been acting as though my entire future depended on Ethan. It didn't. I updated my budget, canceled subscriptions I didn't use, called a career coach, reached out to former coworkers, started taking free certification courses online. Every small action made me feel stronger. Ethan barely noticed. One Friday evening, he walked into the kitchen. "You forgot to pick up my dry cleaning. I had an interview." "Oh," he paused. "You should have planned better." That was it. No question about how the interview went. No encouragement, just disappointment over a shirt. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I sat alone on the back porch with a cup of tea. For the first time, I admitted something I had been avoiding. Losing my job hadn't changed my value. It had simply revealed how my husband measured it. The following Monday, my phone rang. A company in Austin wanted a second interview. The position paid even more than my previous job. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a text from Ethan. "Don't forget to transfer money for the internet bill today." I looked at the message. Then at the email inviting me to the final interview. For the first time, I didn't feel excited about saving my marriage. I felt excited about saving myself. I didn't tell Ethan about the final interview right away, not because I wanted to punish him, because I wanted one moment that belonged only to me. I drove to Austin feeling nervous but hopeful. The interview lasted nearly 2 hours. We talked about my experience, leadership skills, and future goals. When I left the building, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Confidence. 2 days later, they called with an offer. The salary was higher than my old job. The benefits were better. They even offered flexible work options after my first 6 months. I cried in my car before driving home. Not because of the money, because someone had looked at me and seen value. That evening, Ethan noticed I seemed happier. Something good happened? I accepted a new job. His face lit up. Seriously? That's amazing. For a second, I almost forgot everything. Then he smiled and said, "That's going to make our finances a lot easier." Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "I know how hard you've worked." Just the finances. I nodded politely. "They'll also need me in Austin a few days each week." "Oh," he said, "we'll figure it out." Over the next month, my new routine changed more than my schedule. I stopped doing every household chore by myself. I made a simple list and divided responsibilities fairly. When Ethan asked why the laundry wasn't finished one evening, I calmly answered, "It's your turn." He looked surprised. "You've never done that before." "I know." No argument, no lecture, just a boundary. The next weekend, his parents invited us over. His mother joked, "Now that you're working again, don't forget a wife's first job is taking care of her husband." Before, I would have laughed awkwardly. This time I smiled and replied, "Marriage works best when both people take care of each other." The room became quiet. No one argued. The conversation simply moved on. Driving home, Ethan asked, "Did you have to say it like that?" I wasn't rude. No, I was honest. He didn't answer. Over the following weeks, he began noticing things he had ignored before. How often I managed our finances, how many appointments I scheduled, how much emotional work I carried without anyone seeing it. One evening, he found the budget spreadsheet I had created during my unemployment. He stared at it for several minutes. "You were paying all of this?" "Yes, I thought." "I know what you thought." He looked embarrassed. "I guess I never really asked." "No, you never did." A few days later, he apologized. Not with flowers, not with expensive gifts. He sat across from me at the kitchen table and quietly said, "When you lost your job, I started seeing you through a paycheck instead of through the person you are." I'm ashamed of that. I listened. I can't change how I acted. "No," I said softly, "you can't. But I want to do better." For the first time in months, I believed he understood the difference between providing money and providing respect. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. Neither was confidence. But our marriage slowly became more balanced because I stopped carrying it alone. The biggest change wasn't Ethan. It was me. I no longer apologized for resting. I no longer explained every minute of my day. I no longer believed my income determined my voice. I learned that employment can come and go, titles can change, paychecks can disappear, but dignity should never depend on any of them. Looking back, losing my job felt like the worst thing that could have happened. Instead, it became the moment I finally understood my own worth. My career recovered, my confidence returned, and my marriage only had a chance because I chose boundaries before resentment. Silence didn't make me weak. It gave me room to hear something I had ignored for too long. My own voice. If this story touched you, please comment and subscribe. I have one question for you. Have you ever felt your value was judged by your job or income? Let me know your answer below.